It is nearly a year since Sir Keir Starmer set out his 5 missions for a Labour government. Then, after Labour took office in the summer, came his 6 steps for change. Today he presented a third list, and it's milestones this time. There are 6 of them again, and the Prime Minister wants voters to use them to judge his first term in government. They're not meant to replace the earlier mission statements, Sir Keir explained, but they do represent targets which can be measured on hospital waiting lists, living standards, housing and police numbers. Critics have pointed out the absence of targets on another big issue for voters, immigration, and the lack of any significant government achievements so far.
Turning up at Pinewood Studios today with a licence not to kill and definitely without much gold, the Prime Minister wanted to tell all of us what his goals are, his milestones for the Parliament. And before you ask, the plan for change isn't a political relaunch. It's
a strategy that will give the government and the nation, whether in calm or choppy waters, the stabilising certainty of the clear destination, guide us towards a decade of national renewal. Today we publish measurable milestones that will also give the British people the power to hold our feet to the fire.
So these targets are partly about allowing us to judge at the election whether he's failed or flopped, but also to galvanise and direct civil servants. Whitehall, about whom he wasn't altogether flattering.
I do think that too many people in Whitehall are comfortable in the tepid bath of managed decline.
Keir Starmer's milestones for the next 4 and a bit years are to increase living standards in all UK regions and, in England, build 1.5 million homes, a feat that hasn't been achieved since the 1970s. Get more than 3 million people off NHS waiting lists by meeting the NHS standard that 92% should no longer wait for elective treatment. Recruit 13,000 neighbourhood police and support officers. Increase to 3/4 the number of 5-year-olds who are ready for school. Convert 95% of power generation to clean energy by 2030. Now, here's something that the Prime Minister says he knows is so important, it somehow doesn't need to be a milestone.
Government will reduce immigration, legal and illegal, because that is what working people want.
As for the actual milestones, they will be hard to meet, except for the most important, on living standards.
There's actually never been a parliament in modern times when real household disposable income didn't rise. Unless you put a numerical target on it, it's a meaningless milestone.
People know when they're better off. It's one of the first things that people talk about. Of course we'll go on, that's what the milestones are here, they all ladder up.
Wes Streeting never knowingly undersold. Give me a confidence level, 1 out of 10 for hitting the milestone.
I'm a glass half full optimist, so how can I sound confident without sounding cocky and complacent? I'd give myself on the NHS a 9 out of 10.
Marks out of 10, how confident are you?
10, otherwise I won't let the Prime Minister say it.
Mary Waterhouse, who's been waiting for a knee operation in Blackpool since January 2022, is less bullish.
I voted for Mr Starmer, yes, and I'm now very, very disappointed. One of the things that disappoints me about him is the NHS waiting lists, the winter fuel allowance being taken away from the pensioners.
For him, today is all about persuading Mary and millions like her that they didn't waste their vote in the election.
Right, Robert, if this government fails, it won't be because the Prime Minister didn't tell us enough times what he wants to do. So what's your take on his latest mission statement, if I can call it that?
Well, look, Mary Waterhouse in my little film, I think, captures the mood of millions in her disappointment with what's happened so far. I mean, you know, the government, Keir Starmer, wins a parliamentary landslide on July the 4th. I mean, the honeymoon lasted about 3 days, and the reason for that is because he's done a number of things that are unpopular. Taking away the universal entitlement to winter fuel credit upset a lot of pensioners. Pushing up employers' national insurance. All the economists say it will make working people he said he would protect, poorer by pushing down wages and pushing up prices. So he just had to do something to, I hate this sort of cliche of politics, change the narrative. And so he just felt he had to set up this list of positive things that he plans to do, partly to say to people, look, I am going to deliver change, and in 4 or 5 years' time, these are things I'm going to change. You can judge me then when I've delivered them. But also because up till now, his programme, his so-called missions, which is the phrase he kept using, were for 10 years of change. That doesn't galvanise the civil service because, you know, if you tell them you don't have to deliver something for 10 years, they're not going to act now with the sense of urgency that's required. So he's got two big audiences here. What he is trying to do, I said, as I say, myself to him, you've just heard me say this, that on living standards, I don't think he's being ambitious at all because he hasn't set a numerical target for how much he wants to do that. And I suspect that's a mistake for the simple reason that if you look across the world, governments are currently being thrown out when people don't feel better off. But his other targets, they are challenging. Getting down waiting lists to that extent, that will be very hard. I talk to people in the energy industry all the time. They think delivering totally, well, 95% clean energy by 2030 is almost impossible. And 1.5 million houses in the case, you know, in a single parliament. Do you know the last time 300,000 houses were built in a single year, which is what's required? 1977, right? So I think when people say he's not being ambitious, that is a load of rubbish. These are stretching targets. Whether they are delivering the people's priorities, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, we will. Many thanks, Robert.